Hey everybody, I'm Alan with Dad's Playing Games, and this video is an introduction to my solo campaign in the game of Frostgrave. If you're not familiar with Frostgrave, Frostgrave is a miniature skirmish war game written by Joseph A. McCullough and published by Osprey Games back in 2015. Now, if you've seen some of our other Dad's Playing Games videos, you'll know that I've been going through a campaign with my co-host Jeff, who obviously is not here today. We've found that our lives are just too busy to record these battle videos on any sort of routine basis. There's a link in the description below for a video that goes into a little more detail on that. But because of that, I've decided to film a solo campaign. If you're familiar with Frostgrave, you know that it's not a solo game, it's a head-to-head game. But most of my experience with the game is playing solo, and I'm hoping to make some interesting videos of what it's like to play this game if you don't have anybody else to play against. One problem with playing any kind of solo game is that you never have anybody to experience it with. You can't high-five somebody across the table or laugh at hilarious dice rolls. So that's part of my plan with this, is to share my gameplay experience with you, the viewers. And so I hope to provide something entertaining and possibly have some community back and forth through comments on these videos. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining the rules that I'll be using for my campaign, some of the special rules, some of the optional rules, and they're going to be similar to the rules that Jeff and I used in our campaign that we had started. So first is, in the core rulebook, there are some optional rules. I will be using critical hits. The wounded option I will not be using. Random encounters I will be using. And for transcendence, I might be using that. So we'll see how that goes. One of the big things that I'm changing that's similar to me and Jeff's campaign is, since I'm using various bricks, I will be using a brick measuring system. So in my campaign, any mention in the book of inches is basically going to be replaced with the words 4 brick pegs. So 1 inch is going to equal 4 pegs, or 1 move will equal 4 pegs, and I'll probably just be calling them movement units as I play. With that, my table size is the equivalent of a 32 by 32 movement unit board instead of a 36 by 36 standard board. So it's a little undersized. 2 other house rules that I'll be using are a rule that Jeff and I implemented of no spell spamming, which basically means each spellcaster cannot successfully cast the same spell 2 turns in a row, to force me into some variety of spell casting. I'll also be using the experience chart found in the Maze of Malcor expansion book, just to promote more spell casting and treasure seeking over just killing things. The main focus of any game of Frostgrave is the wizards. And I wanted to do something different in my campaign to create some variety in the spells selected and the way my wizards play. I'm going to be creating 4 wizards for my campaign to mix and match my playthroughs. But the first thing I did for their spells is I actually removed 1 spell from each school of magic. I started by looking at the spells that I personally have found to be either overpowered or overused, and I removed Elemental Bolt, Strength, Bone Dart, Create Grimoire, Mind Control, and Plague of Insects. The next thing I did was look at the spells that I just haven't found any desire to champion, and I decided to remove Time Walk, Restore Life, and Curse. And then, just to round out all the schools, I removed Monstrous Form from the School of Illusion. After removing those spells, I selected a school for each of my wizards. Then I picked their 3 spells from their primary school as normal. However, I selected spell combinations that I personally had never used before, and I decided that I didn't want any of my wizards to have any spells in common, at least at the start of the campaign. So I did kind of a randomized draft to select each wizard's other spells. So what I did was I had each wizard draw 2 random spell cards for each of their aligned schools and 1 random spell card for each of their neutral schools to create kind of a pool of spells. Then each wizard had to use their own limited pool to pick their 3 aligned spells and their 2 neutral spells. I'll go into detail on which spells were selected for each wizard at the start of the battle videos. The only other thing that I changed with wizard creation is with equipment. I've decided that none of the spellcasters will be able to equip a dagger as an offhanded weapon. I just find that dagger to be a little overpowered with a +1 fight, and so I've decided not to have that as an option for any spellcasters during the campaign. After creating a wizard, the next thing you do is form a warband. I've put a couple limits on myself with that. I've decided that each warband can only have 1 treasure hunter because I've found treasure hunters to be really overpowered. Just their fight skill and their movement rate seems to make them quite powerful. And I tend to get a lot of them, so I want to try out some of the other soldiers. So 1 treasure hunter per warband. And then captains are an optional rule that comes later past the core rule book. I won't be using them to start. I don't know if I'll be incorporating them, but we'll find out in the future. The final changes I've made for my Frostgrave campaign have to do with the out-of-game portion of Frostgrave. Normally you can cast any number of spells out of game that you know, but I've decided to use each spellcaster's will stat to determine how many spells they can cast out of game. So an apprentice starting out with a will of 2 can only cast a max of 2 spells out of game. So this will encourage wizards to increase that stat and hopefully decrease spamming of out of game spells. The other change that I've made to the out of game portion is with purchasing equipment out of games, magical things. Normally you can buy whatever you want to buy, but I've decided to limit what's available to purchase from the black market. Each warband will always have access to 1 potion of healing from the black market. In addition to that, each warband will make 1 roll on each of the tables for grimoires, scrolls, magical items, magical weapons and armor, and potions, which will give each warband 6 things that will be available for them to purchase from the black market. So that should hopefully limit just buying just the most powerful stuff and make me use some of the equipment that normally I might not ever use. So those are all the changes I've made for how I'll be creating my wizards and their warbands, and all the house rules I'll be using throughout the campaign. My next video will be a battle video. I plan to go through all of the scenarios found in the core rulebook, and I will be randomly selecting which of the 4 wizards will be fighting against each other in one-on-one battles. That's all for this video. Make sure to check the description below for links to the first battle once we've got that posted. Please like and subscribe so you can keep up with everything we're doing here with Dad's Playing Games. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Alan with Dad's Playing Games.